You know, when you step into a doctor's office with like a broken arm, there is this profound comfort in the machinery.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very linear process.
Right. They take an X-ray, the image pops up on a glowing screen, and there is a distinct, jagged white line cutting across the bone. The doctor points to it, you look at it, the problem is visible, it's categorized, and the path to fixing it is completely mapped out.
You put it in cast, wait 6 weeks, and you're good as new.
Exactly. It is a perfect binary system of cause and effect.
It's the ultimate reassurance of the physical world, I think.
Yeah.
We crave that kind of linear progression. We want a diagnostic tool for everything in life, especially when the stakes are high,
But then you graduate or you finish a boot camp and you step into the world of building a creative career, specifically a digital design career. And you look around for that X-ray machine to tell you why you aren't getting hired or why your portfolio is getting rejected, and you realize the machine just doesn't exist.
No, it really doesn't.
You are staring into completely murky waters. There's no skeletal structure showing you the exact fracture in your interview technique.
It is a phenomenal shock to the system for most junior designers. I mean, you spend all this time learning the mechanics of a software program, assuming the career path will be just as logical as the code underlying the tools.
Right, like if I know the shortcuts, I get the job.
Exactly. But the professional landscape of design is entirely subjective.
Yeah.
It's fluid. And that's why we see so many talented people get completely paralyzed. They're waiting for a diagnostic report that is never, ever going to come.
And what makes those murky waters even more frustrating is like the mythology surrounding the destination. We've all seen the targeted ads and the social media posts.
Oh, the lifestyle posts.
Yeah, the prevailing image of the successful designer is someone sitting on a pristine beach in Bali, a bamboo table propped in the sand, tapping on a laptop for maybe 2 hours a day, and making incredible money.
The dream.
It is the ultimate carrot on a stick for creatives. But there is a massive, gaping canyon between opening a design tool for the very first time and actually achieving that level of autonomy. So how do you cross that?
Well, that canyon is where 90% of people quit. Because when they ask how to cross it, the industry often responds with these incredibly vague, almost mystical platitudes.
Like what?
Like, just trust your creative instincts, or network authentically,
Oh, I hate that one.
right? Or find your unique voice. Look, if you are a junior designer trying to figure out how to pay your rent next month, finding your unique voice is not a strategy. It's a luxury. You need a structural blueprint.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are throwing out the vague advice. We are going to extract the exact granular roadmap for moving from a total beginner to a highly successful independent designer.
Yes.
And to do this, we're using a very specific map. We are breaking down the core design concepts from Chapter 32, which is literally titled Success in Design, from a comprehensive book called Design User Interface by authors Michael and Diana.
What makes this specific chapter so critical is its focus on the non-technical architecture of a career. It's vital to understand that knowing the mathematics of typography or, mastering color theory or building the perfectly responsive component library, that is only the baseline.
Right, that's just the entry fee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need those skills, yes, but they do not guarantee you a career. We're going to explore the psychological and strategic skills required to actually land the promotions, the raises, and to launch the startup projects that define a truly successful trajectory in this industry.
Okay, let's unpack this. But before we wade into these waters, I want to make sure you, the listener, have direct access to the cheat code we're referencing today.
Yeah, you really need to see the source material.
If you are serious about mastering these concepts, you can buy the book Design User Interface right now. Just scan the QR code of the book link provided in the description below.
Super easy.
Yeah, or if you prefer typing it out manually, the exact link is https://hype4academy.gumroad.com/Leebook. Grab it, because Michael and Diana have structured something that cuts entirely through the industry noise.
And while you were doing that, we explicitly request that you hit the follow button on whatever platform you are using to listen to us right now. Following the show guarantees you won't miss our future technical design breakdowns and career-building content.
It really is the single best way to support these deep dives and keep this kind of detailed analysis coming your way. So let's jump in. Chapter 32 starts by taking a sledgehammer to a concept that self-help gurus have been aggressively pushing for decades.
Oh, the classic cliche.
Yep, don't work hard, work smart. Michael and Diana argue this is basically a trap for junior designers.
It is a very seductive trap too. Working smart is frequently packaged as a hack. It's sold as a way to bypass the sweat equity. The implication is that if you just find the right template or use the right AI prompt or discover some hidden workflow, you can skip the grind.
Right, like there's a secret backdoor.
Exactly. But the authors reframe this brilliantly. They state that acquiring this book, reading chapter 32, absorbing their condensed years of trial and error, that is the working smart part.
Ah.
Yeah, you've already checked that box by finding the right digestible source material. You bypass the need to make a decade of amateur mistakes.
But the receipt for working smart is paid for with working hard. Once you have the map, you still have to walk the miles. There's no magic algorithm that a creative director uses to hire you.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting and where design fundamentally separates itself from almost every other digital profession. The authors point out that designers possess a structural, industry-specific advantage. The work itself is highly agile.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is about the underlying economics of how digital value is created.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, the authors explicitly contrast designers with developers to illustrate this. Let's look at software engineering. A developer's output is bound by the sheer, unforgiving complexity of logic and architecture. If you ask a developer to code 5 times faster, the result isn't just sloppy code, it's a catastrophic system failure.
Right, because you can't just type characters onto a screen faster without breaking the entire application.
Exactly. They have to deal with dependencies, compiling times, debugging, and strict syntax rules. There is a very real hard ceiling on how fast a human brain can write and test complex logic.
Wow, yeah.
But design operates on a completely different physical and cognitive axis. Through sheer repetition, muscle memory, and the strategic use of modern design tools like establishing robust component libraries, a designer actually can break through that speed ceiling.
Really? Like, practically speaking.
Oh, absolutely. A junior designer might agonize over the padding and hierarchy of a landing page for 10 hours. But an expert designer who has internalized the grid systems and has a library of pre-built high-fidelity components at their fingertips can design a vastly superior version of that same page in 2 hours.
They're literally moving 4 to 5 times faster.
Yes.
Which opens the door to the holy grail of creative work, right? Shifting your entire business model from hourly billing to per project billing.
The absolute dream.
Because think about the perverse incentive of hourly billing. If you get incredibly fast and efficient at your job, and you charge by the hour, you are actively punishing your own bank account.
Yeah, you do better work faster and you get paid less. It makes no sense.
It makes zero sense. But if you transition to charging a flat rate based on the value the final product provides to the client, everything changes. You quote a project for $1,000. When you're a junior, that takes you 20 hours. You're making $50 an hour. But when you hit that expert speed velocity and you knock out that $1,000 project in 2 hours,
you just made $500 an hour.
and you're done for the day before lunch.
You have successfully divorced your earning potential from the linear ticking of a clock. You are trading value, not time. But the authors are deeply pragmatic here. They emphasize that to reach that velocity, to build that muscle memory in those component libraries requires an intense initial period of hard work.
I want to push back on this a little bit, though. Let's talk about the destination again, that laptop on the beach. Is that actually a realistic goal, or is it just a manipulative marketing image?
Well,
Because let's be entirely practical. Trying to use a laptop on a sunny beach is a total nightmare. The glare on the screen makes it impossible to see your color contrast. There is sand getting into your keyboard switches, and the Wi-Fi connection is usually unstable. It feels like a fantasy constructed to sell a lifestyle, not a career.
okay, your practical assessment of beach ergonomics is entirely accurate.
Thank you. I mean, it's just sand everywhere.
But we have to look at the beach as a metaphor, not a literal workspace.
Okay, fair.
The beach represents absolute autonomy. It represents geographical independence and the freedom to control your own schedule. That autonomy is very real and highly achievable in design. However, the authors explicitly warn against the toxic side of this pursuit. They are not endorsing the hustle culture that tells you to sacrifice your health, burn the midnight oil, and fall asleep on your keyboard.
Right, because grinding without a system isn't hard work, it's just exhaustion.
Exactly.
They define hard work as disciplined internal consistency. I like to think of this speed advantage like a professional chef working in a high-end kitchen.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Think about the first time you ever tried to finely dice an onion. You were probably terrified. You watched your fingers, you calculated every single slice, your eyes were watering, and it took you 5 full minutes to get a pile of uneven chunks.
Oh yeah, total mess.
But a Michelin star chef, they grab the knife, they don't even look at the blade, and they produce perfectly uniform pieces in 10 seconds. They are exponentially faster, but the final dish doesn't suffer. In fact, it's better because of the uniformity. Yes.
They aren't working harder in that 10-second window. They are cashing in the compound interest of the thousands of hours they previously spent practicing knife skills. That is a phenomenal analogy. The client at the restaurant isn't paying for the time it took to chop the onion. They're paying for the flawless execution of the dish. The chef traded value.
Right.
So the pivotal question for someone reading chapter 32 is, how do you develop those design knife skills? How do you build that internal consistency? Mikkel and Diana suggest that the very first step actually has nothing to do with software. It requires looking inward and identifying your innate strengths.
Which leads us to a massive psychological hurdle for a lot of people, the but why phase. There is this pervasive myth that to be a successful independent designer, you have to be an incredibly charismatic, extroverted salesperson.
On the rockstar designer myth.
Yes. Junior designers look at tech keynote presentations or big agency pitches on television and they think, I can't command a room like that. I'm an introvert. I guess I'm locked out of the top tier of this career.
And the authors completely validate that anxiety. They acknowledge their own hesitation, literally saying, charismatic, me, no way.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
It is. They recognize that while communication skills can be improved, fundamentally altering your personality from introverted to a boisterous extrovert is not a sustainable or healthy strategy. But what they reveal is the beautiful equalizing truth of the design industry. The work can speak louder than you ever could.
Wow.
You do not need to be a charismatic talk show host if your portfolio is so undeniably good that it blows the client away before you even unmute your microphone.
Because employers aren't algorithms. They are human beings looking for signals of competency and reliability. And one of the loudest, most undeniable signals you can send is ambition, which is demonstrated by the sheer volume of completed projects you can present.
Let's analyze the underlying psychology of the hiring manager in that scenario. Imagine you're an art director at an agency, and you are reviewing applications for a junior role.
Okay, I'm the art director.
You already know that every single applicant is going to lack real-world experience. You expect their typography to be a little loose, their grid alignment to be slightly off, and their color theory to need refinement.
Naturally.
But if applicant A hands you a portfolio with 3 meticulously polished school projects, and applicant B hands you a portfolio with 30 completed projects, even if they are small, conceptual, or slightly flawed, what does that tell you?
It tells me applicant B has an engine.
Exactly. It tells you they possess an internal engine. They have undeniable drive. As an art director, I can teach you how to adjust line height. I can teach you how to use a baseline grid, but I cannot teach you how to have drive. A massive volume of output proves your ambition far more effectively than any rehearsed charismatic answer in an interview.
It proves you can actually sit in the chair and do the work when no one is forcing you to. And to build that massive volume, to build that engine, the authors prescribe a very specific, uncompromising challenge.
The 30-day challenge.
Yes. They tell the reader to complete a design exercise lasting between 30 minutes to 1 hour every single day for at least a month. And they emphasize that this absolutely includes weekends. No days off. It is quite literally a daily workout for your design muscles.
It's the exact equivalent of a musician practicing their scales every single day, regardless of whether they have a concert coming up. And they don't sugarcoat the difficulty of this. They fully acknowledge the resistance you're going to feel.
Oh, the resistance is real.
Yeah. They know that after a grueling 8-hour day at a job you might not love, or after a full day of university classes, your cognitive battery is drained.
Let's be brutally honest. After a long day, the absolute last thing you want to do is open Figma or Sketch. The couch is calling your name, and you just want to turn your brain off and stream something for 3 hours.
Just zone out.
Exactly. But this is where the rubber meets the road. Sitting down and doing that 30-minute design block when you are exhausted is the exact mechanism that builds career resilience. It's identical to physical fitness. You almost never feel motivated to go to the gym when you are tired, but once you push through the resistance and finish the workout, the regret completely vanishes. You only feel accomplishment.
This introduces a profound trade-off that the authors are asking you to consider. They are proposing that committing to a year or two of this intense junior-level grinding, this daily, unrelenting practice, is the currency you use to purchase a lifetime of working on your own terms.
A short-term sacrifice for long-term autonomy.
Precisely. They're not saying relaxation is bad. In fact, they argue that a robust, undeniable portfolio is the ultimate tool for stress reduction. It leads to far more relaxation later in your career because you aren't constantly panicking about where your next freelance client or job offer is coming from. Your volume of work has become your safety net.
I love the blunt phrasing they use to encapsulate this mindset. You don't find the time, you make the time. So true.
Time is not something hidden in your couch cushions that you stumble upon. It has to be actively carved out of your day. But again, let's confront reality. Intellectually knowing that we should do a daily 30-minute challenge and physically forcing ourselves to sit at the desk when we are overwhelmed by apathy? Well, those are two entirely different universes. How do we actually bypass our own hardwired laziness?
This is where McCall and Diana introduce their strategies for managing what they call sweet procrastination. They understand that willpower is a finite resource, so relying on willpower alone will inevitably lead to failure.
You just run out of it.
You do. Instead, they offer two specific psychologically tested techniques to bypass procrastination and protect that daily 30-minute block: time blocking and notebook-based paper to-do lists. Okay, let's dig into time blocking first. The premise is straightforward but powerful. You treat this 30-minute window as a non-negotiable formal appointment on your calendar. You find a consistent slot, maybe it's 7 a.m. before the house wakes up or 8 p.m. after dinner. You put your phone on absolute do not disturb and you lock it in.
What's fascinating here is the cognitive dissonance that time blocking leverages. As humans, we are fundamentally social, rule-following creatures. From a very young age, we are conditioned to respect the authority of the calendar.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, think about it. If you have a scheduled meeting with your manager or a dentist appointment or a flight to catch, you show up. You don't rely on motivation, you rely on the external structure of the obligation. By officially putting this 30-minute design block on your calendar, you are essentially tricking your brain into treating an internal goal with the urgency of an external obligation.
So if the alert goes off,
If that calendar alert fires and you ignore it, it creates a subtle but highly uncomfortable psychological dissonance. Our brains despise the feeling of failing an explicit commitment. We will often force ourselves to sit down and do the work simply to relieve the psychological pressure of a missed appointment.
wow, we are weaponizing our own social conditioning against our laziness. I love that. We respect external authority, so we just have to dress our personal goals up in the uniform of an external authority.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's scrutinize their second technique, the paper to-do list. We are talking about a highly technical, digital-first industry. In a world saturated with incredibly sophisticated productivity apps, Kanban boards, and AI task managers, why are the authors insisting on a physical notebook?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
It really does. They explicitly suggest drawing physical squares on a piece of paper, writing the date at the top, and writing down the task in ink. It sounds almost archaic.
It sounds archaic until you examine the phenomenon of digital fatigue. In an ecosystem where everything we interact with is pixels behind glass, a physical piece of paper and a pen hold a unique tactile gravity in our minds. Consider the mechanics of a digital to-do list. If a task is looming over you and causing anxiety, what do?
I just, click it and drag it to tomorrow.
Or you simply hit backspace and delete it entirely.
Guilty.
Right. It is ephemeral. It lacks consequence. But ink on paper possesses physical permanence. You cannot casually backspace a pen mark. As the authors phrase it, writing it down makes it set in stone. It stares back at you from the desk, demanding resolution.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Think about the physical action involved. Why is it that we can swipe away a push notification on our lock screen without a second thought, barely even registering what it said, but the physical act of dragging a pen across a little square box on a piece of paper feels like a genuine, visceral rush of accomplishment?
You are experiencing the tactile psychology of task completion. The physical motor engagement required to make that mark triggers a tangible micro-reward in your brain's dopamine system.
A hit of dopamine.
Exactly. It is a biological feedback loop that digital apps try to simulate with little animations or sound effects, but they rarely achieve the same depth of satisfaction as physical action. The authors are so attuned to this mechanism that they actually suggest a hack to exploit it. They recommend writing down smaller, effortlessly achievable tasks right alongside your main 30-minute design goal.
You mean putting things like make a cup of coffee or clear off the desk on the list?
Precisely. Because when you wake up, make that coffee, and aggressively cross that item off your physical list, you experience an immediate hit of dopamine. You feel productive. That momentum, that chemical validation, literally fuels your executive function, making it significantly easier to transition into the more cognitively demanding 30-minute design task.
You're just stacking wins.
You are artificially engineering a wave of momentum and then surfing it right into your hard work.
Okay, so we've built the system. We've blocked our calendar, we have our permanent paper list, we are riding the dopamine wave of making coffee, and we are designing every day. Let's fast forward the timeline. We are deep in the trenches of the 30-day challenge. The authors highlight a very specific, statistically dangerous milestone here. They call it the danger zone.
Yes. Day 6. They have observed that the vast majority of people who abandon the challenge do so right around the 6th day.
Which, if you look at a standard calendar, makes perfect, terrifying sense. If you are highly motivated and start this challenge on a Monday, day 6 lands exactly on Saturday.
The weekend.
The weekend hits. The initial adrenaline rush of changing your life has completely evaporated. The novelty is dead. Now it just feels like unpaid labor on your day off.
Yeah, you just want to sleep in.
But they assure the reader that if you can white-knuckle your way through that weekend and make it to day 10, the habit starts to crystallize, and you are highly likely to complete the full 30 days.
So, to ensure we don't quit, what exactly should we be designing during these daily blocks? Are we building massive, world-changing apps?
Absolutely not. The authors are adamant about scoping the work correctly. You only have 30 to 60 minutes. If you try to design a complex, multi-tiered social network architecture, you will fail, get frustrated, and quit.
Right, it's just too much.
Way too much. Instead, you must focus on the atomic level of digital products, the most popular, ubiquitous interface elements that exist in 99% of software. They suggest designing forms, login screens, user registration flows, the classic forgot password sequence, and profile editing screens.
Start small.
Exactly. Once you master those, you graduate to slightly more complex components like data dashboards, visual graphs, or chat interfaces. I can practically hear a junior designer listening to this right now, rolling their eyes and thinking, "You want me to design a forgot password screen? That is the most mind-numbingly boring, bureaucratic piece of UI imaginable. Where is the art? Where is the creativity?"
And Mikal and Diana completely anticipate that reaction. That is why they prescribe a specific ratio to keep the challenge engaging. They recommend periodically injecting pure, unadulterated visual creativity by designing things that are, in their words, less designy and more experimental.
Yes. They bring up the classic dribble aesthetic, designing a floating, translucent, glassmorphic credit card, hovering over a beautifully blurred, vibrant background, maybe with some faux 3D metallic spheres floating in the anti-gravity space around it.
The fun stuff.
Which, let's be honest, sounds incredibly fun to build. You get to play with blur layers, opacity, multiple drop shadows, and lighting effects.
It is incredibly fun, and it serves a dual strategic purpose. The dichotomy between the boring forms and the floating spheres is the exact recipe for a highly hireable designer.
Okay, let's break down why.
Well, the boring practical UI, the login flows of the forms, that is what actually gets you hired by a business. Companies make their money through conversion rates, and conversion happens in forms. If you can design a frictionless registration flow, you are valuable to a business. You understand the plumbing of the internet.
Right.
But those wildly creative, highly impractical 3D spheres, those exercises are where you develop your personal visual style. A style isn't born in a vacuum. It is the result of synthesizing various visual trends with your unique aesthetic sensibilities. The practical forms prove your baseline competence to the engineering team. But the glassmorphic experiments, those visual outbursts, are what catch the art director's eye and make you memorable in a sea of applicants.
Competence gets you through the door. Style gets you remembered. I also realized that forcing yourself to do this very daily challenge completely breaks you out of the silo of your current situation.
What do you mean?
Well, if you are a junior designer currently employed at a massive corporate bank, your day job might consist entirely of tweaking the hex codes on enterprise dashboards for 8 hours. If you only rely on your job for growth, you will never touch glassmorphism or modern consumer-facing mobile patterns or playful typography. This 30-minute block is your personal R&D lab. It is how you ensure your skills don't atrophy.
Precisely. It prevents you from becoming functionally obsolete. And the authors make a crucial point about the psychology of this first month. The ultimate goal of these 30 days is not to produce 30 dribble-ready masterpieces.
Oh, they're going to be ugly.
You are going to make some truly ugly things, and that is completely fine. The actual goal is simply to eradicate the friction between your brain and the software. It's about gaining so much confidence in manipulating layers, vectors, and components that leaving rectangles around the screen becomes as natural as breathing.
Okay, so you've survived the crucible, you pushed through the day 6 weekend slump, you had a hard drive bursting with practical registration forms and highly impractical floating 3D credit cards. But raw files on a hard drive don't get you job offers. They need to be packaged.
They need a home.
Exactly. Which brings us to the portfolio. And the authors open this section by making a very bold structural prediction about where the entire design industry is heading.
They do, and it is a prediction that directly challenges how a lot of boot camps are currently structuring their curriculum. They state that the highly fragmented, chaotic landscape of design job titles, where you see people calling themselves UX designers, UI designers, product designers, UX architects, interaction designers, is rapidly consolidating.
There are just too many titles.
Way too many. Their thesis is that this hyper-specialization is ending, and the industry will essentially merge into two fundamental roles, researcher and designer.
So the era of the generalist is returning, and because of this consolidation, they make a definitive declaration. The era of the UX portfolio without UI is dead.
To fully grasp the magnitude of this shift, we really have to look at the historical context of the industry. For a very long time, there was a philosophical and practical wall separating UX, or user experience, from UI, user interface.
They were completely different teams.
Exactly. You had UX purists who prided themselves on never opening a visual design tool like Sketch or Figma. Their output was entirely theoretical and structural. They delivered extensive user research documents, black and white flowcharts, and low-fidelity wireframes.
And then what?
They would then hand those documents over the wall to a dedicated UI designer whose entire job was to apply the color theory, the typography, and basically make it pretty. But the modern digital economy moves far too aggressively for that kind of slow, waterfall-style handoff.
It's just too slow.
Modern agile development teams require designers who possess full-stack capability. They need someone who can conduct the initial user flow logic and then seamlessly transition into executing the final pixel-perfect interface.
The authors put it very bluntly. Employers and clients buy with their eyes. You can have the most brilliant user flow in the world, but if it looks like a Microsoft Word document from 1998, no one's going to hire you.
Sad but true.
You absolutely must have high-fidelity, polished visual interfaces in your portfolio. So knowing that, how should a junior designer architect this portfolio? Michael and Diana recommend a self-hosted, incredibly simple website, a minimalist wrapper.
Yes.
But wait, if they buy with their eyes, why shouldn't a junior designer use their portfolio site as the ultimate flex? Why not build an incredibly flashy, WebGL-heavy, 3D animated masterpiece with custom cursor trails and parallax scrolling to prove how talented they are?
Because that approach almost universally backfires for juniors. The authors identify this as the trying too hard file.
I've seen that.
We all have. When a junior designer attempts to build a highly complex animated portfolio wrapper, they rarely possess the front-end development chops to execute it flawlessly. The site ends up being sluggish, the animations stutter, the navigation is confusing, and worst of all, the flashy wrapper completely distracts the viewer from the actual case studies.
Right.
A minimalist portfolio signals deep professional maturity. A clean, white background with impeccable typography communicates a powerful message. I am so confident in the quality of the work inside these case studies that I do not need flashing lights and parlor tricks to hold your attention. The interface of the portfolio must be subservient to the designs it houses.
It's the concept of an art gallery. The walls of a museum are painted plain white so that the painting is the only thing you look at. You don't paint a mural behind the Mona Lisa.
That is exactly it.
They also provide strict guidelines on what copy goes on that minimalist page. You need a short, authentic bio detailing your story, your future career goals, and a straightforward list of the tools you use. But they have one absolute non-negotiable rule that I see violated constantly. Do not use progress bars to represent your skills.
Oh, this is a big one.
Now, I have to stop right here and push back hard on this. Let's look at this from the perspective of modern hiring. Why are progress bars considered so toxic? We live in an era of applicant tracking systems, HR screening software, and data-driven hiring.
True.
If I put on my resume that I am 90% proficient in Figma and 70% proficient in Adobe Illustrator, isn't that providing the exact kind of quantifiable metric that an HR screener is looking for? Doesn't it help them immediately gauge my technical level?
I mean, that is a very common misconception, but let's critically deconstruct what a 90% progress SAR actually communicates to an art director or a hiring manager. First of all, it is a mathematically absurd metric.
How
Well, what does 100% proficiency in Figma even represent? Does it mean you have memorized every single obscure keyboard shortcut? Does it mean you can write custom JSON plugins for the software? It is an arbitrary self-assessment that holds zero objective weight.
Okay, fair point.
But secondly, and far more damaging to your prospects, think about what happens when you publish a bar that says you are 70% proficient in Illustrator.
Yeah.
You are literally visualizing a 30% void in your capability. You are spending valuable portfolio real estate pointing a giant neon arrow at your own flaws.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of it like that.
It projects a profound lack of confidence. It tells the employer, here is exactly how much I don't know.
I see. If I tell you I'm an 80% good driver, you aren't impressed by the 80%. You are terrified of the 20% chance I'm going to crash the car.
Exactly. And furthermore, your proficiency is demonstrated by the work itself. If you have stunning UI in your case studies, the employer knows you know how to use Figma. As the authors advise, if you're confident enough to use Sketch, Figma, or Framer professionally, simply write the name of the tool in a list. Period. Do not attempt to quantify the unquantifiable, and do not inadvertently advertise your insecurities through meaningless graphics.
Okay, consider me convinced. The progress bars are dead. So we have this clean, minimalist, mature portfolio site. Now we face the most intimidating part of the process. How do we present the raw output of our 30-day challenge? This brings us to segment 6, case studies.
The dreaded case study.
Right, the very phrase case study triggers anxiety. It sounds like you need to write a 50-page academic dissertation defending the placement of a drop-down menu.
The authors completely recognize that intimidation factor, which is why they suggest a radical shift in terminology and mindset. They advise abandoning the concept of the massive, exhaustive case study. Instead, you should focus on creating mini-case breakdowns.
Which is the perfect format for the projects generated during the 30-day challenge. But here's the friction point. If you just spent 30 minutes designing a really sleek login screen for a hypothetical app, it has no real-world context.
Yeah.
How do you present that without it looking like just a random pretty picture?
It's a valid concern.
McCall and Diana suggest a brilliant workaround. Write a fake bio for a fake company and a fake product. You dedicate 1 or 2 concise paragraphs to describing what this hypothetical app does, who the target audience is, and you explicitly and honestly disclose that it is a conceptual piece.
This raises a very important strategic question. Why go to the trouble of inventing a fake business? If the goal is to show off your visual skills, why not just post the polished pixels and be done with it?
Right, why bother with the backstory?
It all comes back to the core requirement of modern design: business context and storytelling. A senior designer or hiring manager doesn't just want confirmation that you can select a pleasing shade of blue for a button. They need to know that you understand why that button needs to exist in the first place. By inventing a fake brief, for example, let's say you designed a dashboard for a conceptual app that helps commercial farmers track soil moisture. You establish a problem. By defining the problem, you prove to the employer that you possess strategic business acumen. You are demonstrating that you don't just decorate screens, you solve user problems.
So what does this all mean for the actual structure of this mini case breakdown? The authors lay out a very clear narrative arc. First, describe the core problem the user is facing. Second, use bullet points to list the alternative design choices you explored before settling on the final version.
Show your thinking.
Exactly. They even suggest running quick, informal Twitter polls to gather some basic, real-world research data to justify your decisions. But amidst all this structural advice, they drop a massive bombshell about the design process itself. They claim that low-fidelity wireframes, those endless screens of gray boxes with X's through them that every design student spends weeks building, are becoming obsolete.
This represents a massive paradigm shift, and it exposes a widening gap between traditional design education and the reality of the modern tech industry.
It's crazy to hear.
For years, the dogmatic process taught in boot camps was rigid. First, you sketch on paper, then you translate those sketches into low-fidelity gray box wireframes, and only after those are approved do you begin the high-fidelity visual design.
That's how everyone was taught.
The rationale was that gray boxes prevent clients from getting distracted by colors or fonts. But McCall and Diana argue that the landscape of tooling has fundamentally altered this calculus.
Because of the maturity of component libraries.
Exactly. Let's break down the mechanics of this. In the past, drawing a gray box was faster than designing a polished drop-down menu from scratch. But today, if a designer has built or downloaded a comprehensive UI kit, a library of pre-coded interactive components, they don't have to design the drop-down menu at all.
They just grab it.
They simply drag the high-fidelity, fully interactive drop-down component from their library directly onto the canvas. It is like building with high-tech Lego blocks. When dragging and dropping a perfect finished component is literally just as fast, if not faster, than drawing a useless gray rectangle, the entire justification for the wireframing phase collapses.
That makes so much sense.
Why waste your time and the client's money perfectly aligning gray boxes when you can instantly assemble the actual polished interface?
It's a revelation. So they suggest completely excising the wireframe section from your portfolio. Instead, replace it with a section showcasing the pre-designed system component library you utilized, show the overarching flow diagrams to prove you understand the user journey, and then immediately showcase the polished, modular components you assembled to build that journey.
It's so much more impactful.
I like to conceptualize the mini case breakdown as a movie trailer. Think about what a great trailer does. It gives you the plot, the business problem. It introduces the conflict, the alternative design directions you struggled with, and it delivers the resolution, the gorgeous, high-fidelity final product.
That's a great way to put it.
It provides all the necessary context and excitement to hook the audience, but it absolutely does not force them to sit through a grueling 3-hour director's cut examining every single sticky note you put on a whiteboard.
Framing it as a movie trailer is the perfect mental model. The sole objective of a portfolio is to generate enough intrigue and demonstrate enough competence that the employer feels compelled to buy the ticket. And the ticket, in this scenario, is calling you in for a formal interview.
All right, so we are rounding the final corner of this roadmap. You have built the work engine through the 30-day challenge. You have constructed the minimalist gallery to house the work. You have written the compelling movie trailers for your mini case breakdowns. But a beautiful portfolio sitting on a server that nobody knows about is effectively useless.
Completely useless.
You have to generate traffic. You have to get eyes on it. The authors strongly insist that the final step is to take the virtual stage and be active in the community.
And they do not gloss over the fact that for a significant portion of their audience, particularly the introverts we discussed earlier, who chose design specifically to avoid public speaking, the command to take the stage induces pure, visceral panic.
Oh, absolutely.
The idea of standing at a podium in front of 200 judgmental peers is terrifying.
Yeah.
But they are quick to point out that the barrier to entry for thought leadership has been dramatically lowered. We are living in the era of virtual events, webinars, and online panels, which provides the ultimate cheat code for stage fright.
It is the most incredible advantage. Think about the mechanics of presenting on a Zoom call or an online conference. You are sitting in the comfort of your own room. You don't have to memorize a sprawling 20-minute TED Talk.
Not at all.
You can literally script out every single word you want to say, print it out in large font, tape it to the wall directly behind your webcam, and just read it. As long as you look at the camera lens, the audience thinks you are speaking extemporaneously. You will sound incredibly articulate, perfectly paced, and wildly prepared, all while having the ultimate safety net directly in your line of sight.
It completely neutralizes the fear of forgetting your lines. But the authors dig deeper into the psychology of public speaking, noting that the fear isn't just about memory, it's deeply rooted in imposter syndrome.
Oh, the imposter syndrome is so real.
Many junior designers paralyze themselves by thinking, I only have 6 months of experience. I haven't revolutionized the industry. What could I possibly say that is valuable to anyone else? The authors brilliantly reframe this insecurity. They argue that you don't need to present yourself as a flawless master.
Thank goodness.
In fact, doing a postmortem presentation on a project that completely failed, or openly discussing the struggles you had mastering a specific tool, is exponentially more valuable than a victory lap.
This is such a crucial concept. Vulnerability as a professional asset. Imagine a junior designer getting on a virtual panel and saying, hey, here is a mobile app flow I designed last month. I completely botched the touch target spacing, the users were furious, and here's the painful process of how I had to go back and fix it.
People would love that.
The moment they admit that, they instantly become the most relatable, trustworthy person in the virtual room. They connect with hundreds of other beginners who are silently battling those exact same mistakes. You build a loyal personal brand far faster through honesty and shared struggle than you ever could by pretending to be a flawless savant who never makes a bad pixel.
Absolutely. Authenticity scales better than perfection. And for the mechanical execution of the presentation, the authors offer a highly practical mathematical hack to keep the energy up. Prepare at least 3 slides for every minute you are scheduled to speak. If you have a 10-minute slot, you need 30 slides.
30 slides sounds like a lot for 10 minutes.
It forces a rapid pace. By constantly advancing the visuals, you provide your brain with a continuous stream of fresh cues. This prevents the nightmare scenario of getting stuck on a single bullet point and trying to desperately improvise filler material for 2 excruciating minutes. The momentum of the slides pulls you forward through the presentation.
Keep the visual momentum going, and the verbal momentum will follow. And beyond formal speaking engagements, the authors emphasize the necessity of everyday, ground-level community engagement. Being active on platforms like Twitter, Dribbble, Medium, or specialized Discord servers, it's about actively making design friends. Which leads to my absolute favorite philosophical takeaway from this entire chapter. Design is secretly a team sport.
It is the great paradox of the profession. You might physically be an introvert, sitting completely alone in a dimly lit room, quietly pushing rectangles around a screen with a mouse. But intellectually, you are participating in a massive, real-time global conversation. The trends you observe, the accessibility standards you adopt, the micro-interactions you borrow, none of it is created in a vacuum. It is all cross-pollination.
And participating in that conversation leads to what the authors call compound learning. This is the secret weapon of the consistent professional. If you commit to reading just one highly focused 5-minute design article every single day, maybe a breakdown of a new typography trend or a case study on color contrast, that knowledge doesn't just vanish.
Now it compounds.
It compounds in your subconscious. 6 months later, you'll be in the middle of a complex client project, and you will automatically make a brilliant, intuitive design decision. You won't even realize that the solution bubbled up from that random article you read on the subway half a year ago. Your brain archives the community's knowledge and serves it back to you when you need it.
That is the ultimate payoff of immersion. However, the authors are pragmatic, and they offer a vital word of caution regarding the realities of the attention economy. Engaging with the community is necessary, but social media is designed to consume your time.
It's a black hole.
Deciding to start a comprehensive design blog or launching a highly produced YouTube channel requires a staggering investment of hours. They explicitly warn you to ruthlessly protect your priorities. Do not allow the allure of social media engagement to cannibalize the time you have ring-fenced for your daily 30-minute design challenge.
Right, because it's a vicious cycle. If you spend all your time talking about design on YouTube, but you aren't actually putting in the daily reps to improve your skills, eventually you run out of things to talk about. The work must always remain the foundation of the platform.
Always.
Okay, let's take a collective breath and step back to look at the entire map we have just navigated. We started by confronting the harsh but ultimately liberating truth. The path requires undeniable hard work. But because of the agile nature of design, that hard work leads directly to the ability to bill for value, unlocking the freedom to work just a few hours a day.
We dismantled the myth of the extroverted salesman, proving that introverts can absolutely dominate the industry by letting a massive volume of work serve as the ultimate proof of their ambition.
We committed to the daily 30-minute design challenge, and we learned how to beat the inevitable day 6 slump by weaponizing our own psychology, using calendar blocking to create cognitive dissonance, and leveraging the tactile permanence of pen and paper lists to generate dopamine momentum.
We explored the structural shift toward full-stack design generalists, highlighting the necessity of a minimalist portfolio that champions high-fidelity UI. We abolished the self-sabotaging progress bars, and we replaced the exhausting, massive case study with punchy, narrative-driven mini-case breakdowns that use fake companies to prove real business acumen.
And finally, we demystified the process of gaining visibility. We talked about leveraging virtual events to overcome stage fright, utilizing vulnerability as a networking superpower, and immersing ourselves in the community to fuel compound learning. It is a dense, incredibly actionable roadmap. And again, we owe a massive thank you to Michal and Diana for distilling this entire philosophy so clearly in Chapter 32.
It truly is a masterclass in the architecture of a creative career. They've managed to articulate the invisible forces that govern success in this industry.
And remember, what we discussed today is just a fraction of the insight available. If you want the full context, the visual examples of the glassmorphic designs and the component libraries and the entirety of the knowledge contained in this resource, you need to grab Design User Interface right now. Just scan the QR code for the link in the description or manually type in https://hypeforacademy.gumroad.com/leobook. It is an investment that pays immediate dividends.
As we finally wrap up this deep dive into the murky waters of the design industry, I want to leave you with one final, lingering question to ponder as you close your laptop and step away from the canvas today. Think about the nature of your job. You are willing to spend all day, every day, obsessing over the tiniest details, the padding, the drop shadows, the user flows, all to architect seamless, beautiful, frictionless experiences for your users so they never feel frustrated. If you possess the capability to design at that level of care for strangers, why wouldn't you apply that exact same meticulous, empathetic design thinking to architecting your own career? What if you are your most important design project?
Wow, I love that perspective. Engineer your own career with the exact same precision you'd use to engineer an app. That is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thank you so much for exploring the depths with us, for challenging the norms, and for mapping the murky waters. Keep pushing rectangles, keep making the time, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.